That's what she called it. So I called everybody. Then it makes it even worse. Contact
I'm going to have my back to some of you. I apologize. My name is Claire Toomey. I'm the Executive Director of the Human Relations Commission. I cannot tell you how thrilled we are to have you all here. This is really pretty brilliant. And so as people come in, if you have a seat next to you, just raise your hand, pretend you're at church, and somebody, oh, no, that's a trauma. That was a trigger right there. I know it is. You're going to take care of that, right? Okay, good. But just raise your hand and let people know that there are seats next to you, okay? Just some basic housekeeping. If you go out these doors and do a sharp right, it'll take you to the restrooms. Use whatever one you want, yeah, okay? Before we get started, I want to give a big thank you to the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. I'm going to introduce you to our moderators. I'm not nervous. But before we do that, what I really want to do is I want to acknowledge some folks here. First of all, I want to acknowledge, you will notice that we have a great representation of the York City Police Department tonight. I want to be very clear, they're not here just because they have to be. They're actually here because they want to be. And I don't think there are too many PDs that can say that. So I want to make sure that I give a big shout out. There are a number of elected officials in the room. Where are you? Elected official from?
My name is Stephanie Fritz, one of 44 elected transgender women officials from Licking Township, Northern Dauphin County School.
And let the people say amen. Thank you. We have Representative
Carol Hill Evans from the 95th Legislative District, representing the great city of York.
Yeah.
Queen of Washington, Council President for the city of York, as Carol Hill Evans, representing the great city of York, Pennsylvania. City council member, also representing the great city of York.
Somewhere in the room, we have a wannabe elected official. Where are you?
Ryan Super, York City School Board, also hopefully very soon to be on City Council.
Thank you. Have I missed anybody else? Okay, and finally, what I would like to do is I really have to give a shout out to my amazing staff. Oh, no, wait. We have, yes, my staff, and where's Jen? Okay. I could not do what I do without Saimara, Miguel, and Jen. Miguel is our housing and eviction counselor. Saimara is, well, what aren't you, really? She is all things, including our top investigator, and then Jen Martin behind her is our community liaison. And again, liaisons not just with our community, but also with PHRC. And we couldn't do what we all do without our commissioners. And we have commissioners in the room. Go ahead. Oh, John.
And John Register.
Okay, did I get everybody? All right. What I would like to do, and you're going to speak from there, is hand this over to the two of you and take it away. I'm going to let you do all the introductions. Introduce yourselves, introduce our panelists, because I've spoken enough. One more thing. Yes. You will note that I'm standing here, and this is how our mics work. If we get to the question period and you have a question, if you are able, please come to the podium. If that is a difficulty for you, let us know. We'll take your question and bring it to the podium for you. Okay? All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire. Can you hear me okay from here?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Cheryl Meck. I'm the Director of the Civil Rights Division at the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. This is Montrell Smith. He is one of our Civil Rights Outreach Coordinators out of the Harrisburg Regional Office. It's an honor and pleasure to be in this space with you all. While it was a response and reaction to a very unfortunate incident, the point is we have to continue the wheel towards healing. Or for some people tonight, it might just be opening that door for the first time. And that's what this is all about. And so No Hate in our state town halls are designed to continue bringing the divide together and fostering understanding within the community. And while you will hear soon, as I go into the bios of our wonderful panelists tonight, it's truly special to have so many people from different backgrounds together in this space. So we're gonna introduce the panelists. We are gonna have some questions for them. And then by the end, we want to open it up to you all. And just disclaimer, we can agree to disagree, we can have difference of opinions, but what we will have in this space tonight is a level of civility that will not go beyond anything less than respectful. All right? All right, so let's get started. So for our first panelist, we have Claire Toomey, Executive Director of HRC in York, PA. Claire has an extensive history of working in settings whose purpose is to seek justice for those who have been underrepresented and continuously pushed to the margins. This included working with unhoused individuals as a family and adolescent psychotherapist in Baltimore. As an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ, advocating for LGBTQ rights and anti-racism within her demonization, and as both a certified racial equity and inclusion and diversity equity inclusion and belonging facilitator and trainer of trainers. She has written HIV/AIDS curriculum for the Baltimore Board of Health, has written and lectured about the trauma and horrors of immigrants crossing our southern border, and is a published author for Oxford University Press in the text Anti-Blackness and the Stories of Authentic Allies, The Maniacal Imagination and Moral Ineptitude of the Church, the Construction and Sustainment of White Skin Supremacy. Claire has been legally married for the past 13 years to her first love. She has 3 adult children, including a beautiful, courageous, and talented trans daughter. She had her wife hail from Baltimore, has lived many years in Colorado Springs, but have made their final home in the city of York. So, pleasure to have you, Claire. Next to Claire, we have Christina Wangert. She is a wife, mom of 3, and proud pet parent to 2 dogs and a snake. She holds a master's in clinical social work and began her journey with the Rainbow Rose Center as a volunteer for 3 years before becoming its executive director. Christina is passionate about creating safe, supportive spaces where all people can thrive. Thank you, Christina. Next to Christina, we have Reverend D. Marie Tribble. She is a native of Baltimore, Maryland, with 20 years of service in Christian ministry. She presently serves as a pastor of Heidelberg United Church of Christ, UCC, an open and affirming faith community here in York City. In addition to pastoring, Rev. D. Marie is the founder of Face to Face Ministries, a nonprofit mental health outreach center which presently services the Central PA community, and a family-based mental health therapist. In addition to theology and mental health, Rev. Tribble is equally passionate regarding the work of justice. She has served the community as co-director of Christian Churches United, CCU, Race and Unity Action Coalition, community leader for the Messiah University Thriving Together, Congregations for Racial Justice Program, and board member at large for the Rainbow Rose Center in York, PA. She is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, serving as chaplain for the York Alumni Chapter. Rev. D. Marie is passionate in her attempts to continue proclaiming God's ability to break chains of bondage and restore souls to their rightful places within the body of Christ. She is committed to affirming the worth and dignity of all persons as beloved children of God. She is the only daughter of Mary Pauling and the proud mother of, excuse me if I mispronounce, Ariana, Arimani, and Erica? And Erica, and grandee to Angelo. Welcome, Reverend D. Marie. And then last but not least, we have Executive Director Ashley Strange. Ashley Strange goes by they, them pronouns and is the Executive Director of the Governor's Advisory Commission on LGBTQ Affairs. In this position, Ashley engages with federal, state, and local agencies to promote effective utilization of government programs impacting LGBTQ Pennsylvanians and works with the commission to educate the community on existing resources. So thank you, Edie Strange. Yeah. And we sincerely from PHRC just want to say thank you again. We wholeheartedly mean it when people from the community step up and speak up and continue to do the work that you do. So with that, let's get started with the questions. Montreal?
And the first question is for Christina. How do hate crimes affect not only victims, but the broader LGBTQIA community's sense of safety? And how can allies support transgender youth and their families and the LGBTQIA community as a whole? And I can reread the questions if you need to.
We're good, as long as the mic works. There you go. Hate crime has a deep and lasting impact that goes far beyond the individual who is targeted. For victims, they cause pain, trauma, and often a long road to healing. For the broader LGBT community, these acts of violence send a chilling message that who they are puts themselves at risk, eroding the sense of safety, belonging, and acceptance that every person deserves. This fear can create isolation, silent voices, and discourage people from living authentically. Allies play a vital role in countering that harm. Supporting transgender youth and their families means showing up with empathy, advocating for affirming spaces, and challenging harmful rhetoric and policy. Allies can amplify the LGBTQIA+ voices, educate themselves and others, and speak out against hate whenever they see it. By standing in solidarity, allies help rebuild trust, create safer communities, and affirm to the LGBTQIA folks, especially the youth, that they are seen, valued, and never alone.
Thank you for that.
And Director Strange, what does civil rights mean to you personally as someone who uses they and them pronouns?
I use they and them pronouns, and I usually have a button that says that I use they and them pronouns so that it reminds folks when they're talking to me, of which pronouns to use. Cheryl asked me right before we started talking, she's like, are you a doctor? And I need to be very clear about something. Yes. However, when I transitioned and sort of accepted being non-binary, what I did was I realized that I was going to a lot of city council meetings and school board meetings, and they would always misgender me in referencing me, Miss Strange, is this, is this. And so I went online and spent 35 krona on a doctorate of friendship from the California Church and University Institute of Denmark. It is a non-accredited school, so real doctors are in the room. Raise your hands. Oh, thank God. They're not friendly when they hear this. But it's one of the things that I sort of felt like I had to do in order to really sort of be seen in the community, because it's not really a gendered honorific. And so occasionally it also helps because Dr. Strange, it just rolls right out. Never read the books, but I'm sure he's a nice guy. So for me, like the role of civil rights for non-binary people and trans folks, I use they and them pronouns because I neither identify as male or female. And so this works for me. And one of the things that I really want to say is that if something works for you, then you do that thing for you, right? And that's part of why we're here. But that is not true of every non-binary person. Some folks use they them pronouns because they feel both, masculine and feminine. And so you really won't know until you have that conversation with someone, while understanding that not everyone is ready to have that conversation and be that open with you. And it could be because of how you look, or the certain diner that you're in, whether or not they're facing a door. It could be any one of those things. And so when it comes to civil rights for non-binary people, sometimes it does feel like we're being left out, but that's where we're really starting to fill those gaps. So in my role, in the governor's office, we're working with a lot of agencies at the state level to make sure that, for example, at PennDOT, you can still go to PennDOT, you can still get an ID that says X. It can say M or F or X. And X, we know that non-binary people, trans folks who are in transition, but also intersex people. Intersex people are 1% of the population. And so we know that while all of those people exist, it's important to record that and make sure that they're safe, seen, and heard. Same thing with your voter registration card. The Department of State, if you are a non-binary person, or you use neither male nor female, if you don't identify with either of those, you can register to vote using an X instead, and that is something that we're going to continue doing. We're also working across agencies to make sure that folks are recorded. Have you ever gone to a doctor's office or even filled out any kind of form and they've got just two options, M and F? That's something that we're working across agencies, whether you're working with banking or DMVA. We want to make sure that folks are seen and recorded, because otherwise, how do we know that we exist unless we are actually, working to see where we are? Another thing that we're continuing to work on is that data is called SOGI data. So it's sexual orientation and gender identity data. Everyone in this room has a sexual orientation and a gender identity. For some folks, that means that they are straight or hetero. For some folks, that means that they are cis or trans, but everyone has one of those. And so by making sure that we're constantly updating things, that's how we make sure that we're seen. And so civil rights, to me, as a trans and non-binary person who uses they and them pronouns, that means really extending what we can do and how we have to work to see everybody.
Claire, what barriers do you believe prevent victims from coming forward, and how are you working to overcome them as someone for the HRC?
That is a tough question, because the barriers are not the same for every person. There are the typical barriers that exist in terms of where individuals live and what communities they live. We have learned gratefully this past 10 days that York is a safe place for LGBT folk to come forward, and that there are numerous barriers that have been eliminated, if not perceptually, then literally, just in what has happened recently. The greatest barrier, I think, coming from my own experience, is fear. It is an expression of, or an experience of, hypervigilance, constantly looking over one's shoulder, wondering how people are looking at you when you walk into a room, wondering, are you psychologically, spiritually, physically safe? You were talking about going to a doctor, filled out something for WellSpan today, and the question asked, what are you legally, male or female? That in and of itself sends a message that if you identify anything other than that, that is not a safe place to be. A place where you are expecting to be vulnerable and to seek assistance, not being able to recognize that that particular place or person is one that you can trust when you need their help, creates a level of dysphoria that really can throw you into a tailspin. So that fear comes from really bad theology, churches. I made a joke earlier, but I'm guessing that a lot of folks in here have had a not so happy experience within churches. It comes from families, probably tied for first or second with the church, with regard to people that you think you can trust, that should have a higher level of respect and understanding and love and acceptance. It comes from the hateful rhetoric that we are hearing on the daily these days. We can look at specific legislation that can create barriers. For example, hate crime does not exist for the LGBTQIA plus community in Pennsylvania, right? It just does not exist. And other protected classes too, I want to be very clear. So the legislation itself sort of sets up this paradigm of being second-class citizens, not worthy of, not expected to be protected. When you know that your state sees you that way, why bother going any place to get help? Because the law says we're not going to help you. Add to that the rhetoric that we're getting, which is really codifying the violence, then that sets up a whole other level of barriers and obstacles to seeking help. We know that just from my office, sitting in a government office, even if we are, I have had my pride flag hanging from my window since the day after the election, because I wanted people walking by to see that this is a safe place. And we're still in a government office. And so that in and of itself makes people question, because government is not to be trusted. Again, on the flip side of that, looking around this room and who is here, we are learning who our trusted government officials are. That's how we break it down, right? By constantly showing up, by constantly demonstrating, by constantly speaking out that we are here, we are present, we don't follow this, we follow this. And we are here to take care of. It is hard to do. We have attempted numerous times. Where's Jen, our liaison? So Jen Martin is a social justice advocate from PHRC. She is also works in our office as a community liaison and has worked tirelessly trying to engage county schools so that we can provide a safe space for kids who need a place to come that aren't finding those DEIB safe spaces in there. We can't get any schools to call us back. Even when we have contacts in teachers and administrators and counselors, they won't call us back because they're afraid. And so trying to reach out to specifically call people, connect with people, invite them in, we have not had a lot of success there, which means that a lot of our children in York County remain at a terrible risk. And so we're not going to give up on that, but it does become very, very difficult. Does that touch? I mean, I could continue to go on. I'm not shy in that capacity.
No, absolutely. Much appreciated. I know we'll go into that further in the questions here. We do want to switch gears just a little bit as we turn it over to Reverend DeMarie. And we're all well aware of the history of this country. We have a white supremacy problem, always have. And there's been a surge of Christian nationalism going on that affects many, especially the youth as well, as school boards are working with certain, Independence Law Center and other entities when it comes to creating policies that could potentially have disparate impact, specifically on LGBTQ students and other marginalized groups. And so with that, our next question will be for Reverend.
Reverend Marie, what do you say to those who believe that faith and the LGBTQIA plus identities cannot coexist?
Look out. First off, they already exist. Like, that's where I start. They already,
I was excited and they couldn't hear me. Okay, they already exist. I want to start there. I like to preface all conversations that I have publicly about this title to say that I am a proud mother of a transgender daughter. I am her biggest supporter. But we didn't start here. So I was birthed in the church, probably on a pew. And so I've been through several different denominations. I've explored God in so many different places, in so many different contexts. And so I know how hurtful and harmful church theology is. I'm not going to say can be. I know how hurtful it is, right? And so what I say to people who believe that faith and LGBTQIA cannot coexist is you are interpreting your sacred texts based on your own biases. That's what I say. And what's challenging to me as someone who has studied sacred texts is there are individuals who go to school, the same institutions that I've gone to, who've received the same education, who have understood clearly that we have misinterpreted many of our sacred texts, and yet they still make a choice to preach hateful rhetoric. So, and a lot of people don't know that. We go through training. People with seminary trained, they understand that we have inserted language to be hurtful and to create a world that we've wanted, right? And so what I say to that is please show me where biblical or sacred text that it says that God is the God of hate. Every God, in whatever form you like to worship God and the many names that God has, God is the God of love. And so for me, if you can justify hating someone and match God to it, then I might listen. I might actually start to have a conversation. But I believe that God gives us a great example, which is in Jesus Christ. He sacrificed, right? Sacrificed Jesus, and Jesus works for me. Jesus may not work for you, but Jesus works for me. He sacrifices his only son. And so for me, that became my example of what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to be there for my child against all odds. I am not supposed to give up on my child because God doesn't abandon Christ. And so that is why I stand beside my child. And I think people who say that they follow Jesus as the example, they are actually saying I follow Jesus as a Christian, but they're using the rhetoric of other people that come to espouse what their theology is. And so my challenge is always, what did Jesus say and do? Tell me what Jesus said and did. And so if you can tell me that Jesus says to somebody, I don't like you because you're queer, then we can have a conversation, but it's not in there. And as far as I'm concerned, Jesus says, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. And I don't know about y'all, but I love me. I love me. You are supposed to have that same love for others in humanity. And I recognize that I said it the other day when we had the demonstration, the church has some reconciliation work that they have to do. But I'm also wise enough to understand that everybody is not there to start to do that work. And so what does that mean? It means for faith leaders like myself who have done the work, who are in this space of allyship and support, you cannot be silent because there is another voice that is screaming right now that is so not truthful. And we know there's a lot of mistruth happening, right? But we've got to be louder and we've got to espouse what we know to be truth. And that is faith and LGBTQIA identities, they already go together. What doesn't go together is people's religious beliefs and these identities. It has nothing to do with God. It has nothing to do with relationships with God. And if we say that our relationship is personal, because that's what we tell everybody when they come down the aisle, your relationship with God is personal, then why is it so public? Why y'all in it? How do we get to tell people they can't if it's so personal? So I could go on and on because it's a tangent, but I would say they're not reading, they're not interpreting, they are using their own personal feelings, and it comes out of fear, right? Like all of this is about fear. Fear of me losing my identity. You can't have yours because I feel like yours is going to impact mine. That's really what it's about. And I believe that the word tells us that there's space for everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Reverend Marie, I actually have an off-the-wall question that wasn't.
Here we go.
As you know, the Black church has always been against the LGBTQ community. I would say quietly because there are some people who are in the church who you know, but if it's not spoke of, it's not spoke of. What would you say to those who are in the Black church but struggling to stay there? Because as we know, the Black church is diminishing. The younger people are not attending. What would you say to people who are in the Black church and who are of the LGBT community who are struggling to stay into the Black church?
Wow. So I was raised in the Black church. And I still have love for the Black church because it was the Black church that taught me what family was. It was community for me. The Black church raised my children. You know, when I didn't have, they were there. So there are fabrics of the Black church that are amazing. But like any family, there are parts of it that is despicable, right? I'm going to share this, and it's been said publicly. The Black church is the place where my child was carried and laid on an altar so that somebody could pray the gay away. I know the pain that the Black church caused. I left the Black church because there is no space in the world that my child can't be that I can't be. I don't care how much I love the institution, I love my child. And so what I say to those that are there is, God is not calling us to live any part of ourselves. God calls us to live a whole life, right? Like everything that God does is for us to live everything. And it says that we worship in spirit and in truth. So if you're going to church and you've got to leave a part of you at the door or at your house, you're not even worshiping God in spirit and in truth. And so why would you want to be in a space where you're not seen when there's so many spaces? Because your city has your county has some places, but across this country, there are safe places to worship God that people will be seen and heard and loved. The challenge is, where are those voices, right? The problem is we hear all of the negative things, but we don't hear that, you know what, on 47 West Philadelphia Street, there's Heidelberg United Church of Christ, and everybody can come and everybody is welcome. We don't hear that until situations like this happens. And so I feel like for people that are in Black spaces, continue to have the conversation. If your faith is not strong enough to be tested, it is not legitimate faith. You should not accept anything that anybody says without testing it for yourself. And when you start to wrestle, that is the mark that you are really engaging God, because God calls us out to grow us into what we are supposed to be, not the theology that's handed to you by somebody else based on their own lived experiences. You got to know God for yourself. You want me to start preaching. That's why.
Let the congregation say amen. Thank you. Director Strange, how can LGBTQIA plus rights and racial justice movements work together more effectively?
This can easily be summed up in a single answer that will solve both racism and homophobia all at the same time. I think that, you know, like the Reverend said, the first step is acknowledging that there is a divide. There's also, noting, as a person of color, sometimes I walk into a room and I do like my person of color count. I'm like, am I the only one here? Am I one of two? Does it count if they're working here? But it does not. But I think that specifically for bridging these divides, it does take not just focusing on one race in the LGBTQ community, but focusing on the community as a whole. So I am the executive director for the Governor's Advisory Commission on LGBTQ Affairs. There are 6 of us, and I'm going to have these at the front. We have the Commission on African American Affairs, the Commission on AAPI Affairs, the Commission on Latino Affairs, LGBTQ Affairs, Next Generation Engagement, and the Commission on Women. And so we all are constantly working together. We're constantly meeting with each other, going to each other's events, because, as I say, if it's gay and it's in PA, the governor wants to know what's going on, and that's when I show up. And so that's basically what we do is we have to start listening to each other. It's through listening to each other that I learned from Rosine Carew, who runs the AAPI Affairs Commission that hepatitis B is really, really prevalent in the AAPI community. And that's something that our community deals with a lot as well. There are other health needs. We've got health needs from the Latino community. We're seeing that there are folks who are afraid to go to the doctor. Especially now, there are folks in the Latino community afraid to go to the doctor because they don't know if they're going to be turned in, they don't know if they're going to be picked up, and so they avoid going to the doctor. For the LGBTQ community, a lot of us have some of those same fears. If you feel comfortable going to your doctor and saying, yes, this is who I am, this is how I feel, these are the surgeries that I've had, and this is what my body is, can you fix the pain in my elbow and not so much focus on, what's going on up here, what's going on elsewhere. If you don't feel comfortable talking to your doctor, LGBTQ folks will not go to the doctor. You're seeing higher rates of cancer in LGBTQ folks, by women especially, because they don't go to the doctor, because they don't want to talk about what's going on in their lives. They're not safe. And it's the same thing that's going on with, the African American community and, immigrant communities and things like that. And one of the ways that we're really uniting is we're seeing a lot of there have been asylum seekers that come into the United States, and there are a lot of organizations that support them. But one of the things that we're starting to see more, I was just on a call right before I came in with LGBT centers from across the state, and some of them were saying that every week they have someone that shows up at their LGBT center and says, I'm here from Wisconsin, I'm here from Ohio, I heard Pennsylvania is safe, so I came here. And they don't have resources and they don't know anyone, but they just want to be safe. And there are, refugees in the Black community. There are folks who are coming from places where there's war and famine, and we are seeing the same thing in an interstate level. And so while we continue to try to make a safe space, the governor is doing everything he can to make sure that LGBTQ folks are safe and seen and heard. We know that we know that there's still a lot of work to do, and I think that by seeing where we can collaborate instead of necessarily seeing where we butt heads. How many people here believe in pineapple on pizza? How many are violently against pineapple on pizza? Okay. How many of you have had a pineapple upside down cake? All right, are you the same people that don't like it on pizza? Sometimes. Why don't we see where we can, instead of dividing us into two groups of people, why don't we see where we can come together? Because a lot of times we have a similar, somebody's not all about that, I understand. Pineapple isn't everybody's cup of tea. But we have to understand that we have a common enemy and it's not each other. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of work to figure out who that is. In some communities, I know that we have the York police here, and they've been very helpful, and they've been working with the community. But in some places, people think that the police are the enemy, when often they are the people that we need to be uniting with to find out who is truly the common enemy. Is it bigots? Is it pineapple? We really have to find out where we unite. Otherwise, we are just going to dig each other into the dirt, just trying to find out what makes us different.
Thank you.
Oh, such good answers. Thank you so much. We're going to slide over to Christina. Can you take a few minutes and share with us about initiatives specific to your organization that focuses on combating discrimination?
Yeah, so at the Rainbow Rose Center, our initiatives are rooted in education, advocacy, and direct community support. We provide trainings for schools, businesses, and organizations to promote LGBTQIA+ inclusion and awareness, help break down the stigma, and foster safer environments. Our peer support groups and community programs offer affirming spaces where individuals can connect, share experiences, and build resilience. resistance apology. And we also work alongside leaders, like here, and partner with organizations to advocate for policy change that protect the LGBTQ rights and ensure equality across York County. By combining the education, advocacy, and supportive services, we strive to combat discrimination while uplifting the voices and experiences of our community.
Thank you for that. And there is a table out in the hallway, right, with resources?
There is, yes. Mhm.
Absolutely. Okay, Claire, we're taking it a step deeper with this question. Can we talk about what local protections currently exist for LGBTQIA individuals? Where are the gaps? And how do local laws and ordinances interact with state and federal hate crime protections? What did you say?
I'm going to start, and when I forget, you'll come back.
I got you.
Okay. It's interesting, and it sounds like a cop-out, but the first part of the answer is almost the same. The gaps have to do with not knowing where it's safe to go, right? So locally, we're the Human Relations Commission. So from a discrimination perspective, we are here to investigate all forms of discrimination. The tagline is within housing, public accommodations, employment, education, right? So if you come to us and you've been discriminated against, then we can seek out some sort of reparation for what has happened to you through a long, drawn-out process. I'm not going to put you to sleep with that now, but we are here to see you through that process. We have not seen anybody from the LGBTQ community in the 2.5 years I've been here. And so what that says to me, because I can't imagine there's one person in this room who hasn't been discriminated against, is that we're not known, and you don't know those protections exist, or you don't trust that those protections exist, right? So, or all of the above, all right? So right there's a disconnect between legislation that's been in effect in York, especially for the LGBT community, for a long time with the HRC, but most people don't know that it exists, okay? There's also a frustration that, well, I've tried that before and it didn't work. Or I tried it before and the retaliation was worse than the compensation I would have gotten if I had followed through with it. So there's a lot of disconnect even in the system that exists to protect. Obviously, when it comes down to hate crime legislation, and here's I think probably everybody here who's been involved in this journey in the past 10 days has probably heard why this was not called a hate crime in this particular instance. And the reason for it is because in the state of Pennsylvania, the hate crime legislation falls under intimidation, and it covers race, it covers color, country of origin, and religion, all of which should be covered. But those are the only 4 categories. So it doesn't cover LGBTQ, it doesn't cover disability, it doesn't cover women. So if any of those categories find themselves to be attacked or the victim of a crime, a violent crime, we can't declare it a hate crime, even if that crime was perpetrated for the reason that they fell into that category, okay? So again, there's a level of frustration that comes with that where, well, if it's not going to be declared what it is, then why bother, okay? I'm also sure that there are folks, because I've been spending time on media, that are saying, why can't we have local hate crime legislation? We had a petition up front, just a petition of support that we want in the city of York hate crime legislation. They've done it in Philadelphia, let's have it in York. It's great, but I want you to understand something about that. While I have no doubt of the support of the city, just basically on this last week, it is going to be something that is just a formality. Because on a jurisdictional level, it can only ever be a misdemeanor. So Philadelphia has a hate crime legislation but it's only a misdemeanor, which only will get the person 90 days in jail and a fine up to $2,000. Because until this is recognized on a state level, it can only be a misdemeanor on the local level. Now, that can sound hopeless, but actually I think it's the opposite. The reason why we want to pursue it is the more local jurisdictions pursue it, the louder the message is on a number of levels. On one level, it says to the state, we want this passed. Quit it. You let it die in 2023. The House put it forward, and the Senate didn't pass it again. Okay? So it says over and over again, we want this done. I know you sponsored it. Representative Hill Evans sponsored it. So it says that. It also says to anybody who is a victim that we recognize it, even if they don't. Commissioner Muldrow, I'm going to take a little liberty here because in our conversations, there was no doubt in those conversations that what we saw was evidence of what would have been defined a hate crime if we had hate crime legislation.
Yes.
So the other message it says to the DA, to the FBI, that we as a city recognize the atrocity that has just occurred. And so the hope there is the momentum that it gains in pushing forward and making it visible that we get it even if you all don't get it. What was the other part of that question, please?
Sure. So how do local laws and ordinances interact with state and federal hate crime protections? And you essentially.
Okay, yeah. It doesn't seem like there'd be a connection, but the more we push, the louder we get, the more publicity we have, the more we keep calling representatives and calling the Senate, and the more we say that this is what we want, the more impact it will have.
I'd like to add to
Yeah.
it too. What would you like to see change in the next 5 years regarding LGBTQIA rights and protections at the local level?
Well, I want E.D. Strange to go with that one sentence piece that takes care of LGBTQ and racism all in one shot. Yeah, if we could do that.
Yeah.
On the local level, there's so much intersectionality here that it's hard to stay on task. I'm just gonna say, right? There's just so much intersectionality. When you ask the question, what do I want to see happen on the LGBTQIA? I can't answer that with also saying, what do we want to see happen with anti-racism? What do we want to see with folks who are disabled? What do we want to see with women's rights? The intersectionality cannot be torn apart in answering these questions, right? And so the broader sense is, if we're going to pass LGBTQIA, then we got to pass racism as a public health crisis. Then we have to push as a city that we are, reproductive rights. Like there has to be momentum that says we are doing all of this together. So I can't just say one because I don't want to parse out one over another. I don't want to leave one behind. So I want it all. I want it all in the next 5 years. I want it all in the next year.
I'll add to that. While it's important for cities to have protections, and while we've got good representatives that are doing the good work to make sure that legislation happens at the state level, there's also a personal level that folks can do this at. I had folks from an agency say, well, how can we help somebody who we hire who's transgender? How do we help a transgender hire? And I said, how do you know you haven't already hired someone who's transgender? And they were like, well, how do we help them? And I said, have good HR policies that include everyone. So you can go back to your work, you can go back to your schools or your organizations, take a look at those policies. If they exclude people, sometimes they're gendered, and so in that way they exclude people. Look at your own policies and see where you can work, where you can expand things. Talk to your boards and see what changes we can make there.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's absolutely I'm sorry. I think that's absolutely on the money because policies are also intersectional. And so we have policies here that date back to I don't even know when, but somebody's telling women they got to wear stockings, and that's not going to happen in my world. So I think you're right. The policies that fall not just in an employment, but school policies, which we're seeing just like being taken over, all types of hospital policies, policies in medicine, how seminaries are teaching, how med schools are teaching. Everything is set up in a straight white male hegemony as far as how things have been used, and we haven't been able to shake out of that. We're going to solve all of the problems of the world tonight. Yes. And so I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of being able to dissect what is happening in your own house before you start to go out and demand that everybody else do things. I mean, it should be a both and. I'm not trying to say either or, but we have to be able to say, it's not enough for us to say, hey, we're progressive, we're doing this, and by, I don't mean a political thing by progressive, I mean a forward movement progression. That, hey, you know, we're doing this, we're doing that. Okay, but what are you doing in your own house, right? And so I think that that's critical. I really do. Okay, I'm done.
No, thank you. And just watching of time, I'd like to transition over to Reverend DeMarie. What would you say to parents, regardless if they're in the faith community or absent of, who are struggling to accept their transgender or LGBTQIA identifying children?
Great question. So as you stated earlier, part of what I do is not just being a pastor, I'm also a family-based therapist. And so this is a real topic that I engage regularly. And so there's actually two parts of that conversation. First, to children, I often say, you have to allow your parents to grieve. They don't even realize that what they're fighting is their own grieving process. Not only do they have to grieve sometimes, you know, pronoun changes or, you know, name changes, they have to grieve the future that they have already dreamt up for you that you don't even know exists, right? So that's a conversation for kids. But then for parents, the question becomes, and you can't separate religion from it, because it always somehow gets back to, you know, this is what I was raised to believe, and they don't even go to church now, right? But they hold on to these values. And so what I say is, what's on the table is literally losing the child that you've carried or nurtured for however many years, or having a world where they still exist and you get to fall in love with a totally new person. It's like you get a bonus. Like and I'll say this because, again, everything I say to you, I've said publicly already, so Ronnie won't feel upset. I used to say to Ronnie, you were a fly dude and you were a fly girl. Like, I've had the best of both worlds as a mother, right? Most parents think about, I'm losing something. They don't recognize what they're gaining. And so I give them space to grieve. I would say to that parent, you know, I can't find a space in my core where I would just randomly one day cut off my arm because it was something that I didn't like growing on it. Like, I wouldn't do that, right? I would literally figure out how I could adjust because I need my arm. The same is to be said about your child. Like, this is a part of you. It's hard for me to answer this question because I deal with it so much, but there is no one answer because parents are different. So the first thing that you would have to do is figure out where they are in their own walks of life, right? Because it's not always about faith. Sometimes it's really a matter of, I am afraid. I am afraid for what the world is going to do for you. And that means you're getting out of this bubble. And I don't know what to do outside of that bubble. So sometimes it's education. Sometimes it's holding a parent's hand and walking them through, you know, all of the variety of pronouns and because it's a lot to absorb. And so giving them space. But I would say to them, like, it's not worth it. it's not worth it to lose a person that you love because they're doing something that you don't like. Because that's really what it boils down to. I don't like it or I don't understand it. But it doesn't mean that you don't have time to figure it out. And I think time is what parents don't recognize that they have. One, because the world moves fast. And typically, you know, if you're like me, your kid moves fast. And it's like, wait, what? Okay, hold on. You don't have time to adjust. So talking to your child to say what your needs are. I recognize that this is where you are. I am also going to be in an evolution process because that's what's missing. We're in parallel processes at the same time because I have to learn how to love the new you and in a respectful way. And I also have to live into my new identity because I changed. Like me, I went from being a mom of 2 daughters and a son to a mom of 3 daughters. My language had to change. And there are still moments today that I screw up and I'm like, I misgender my child. And it's like the end of the world and she laughs at me. You know, she laughs because she knows that I love her. She laughs because she knows I'm in her corner. But it doesn't mean that you won't. You're going to screw up. You're not going to get this right. None of us do. And that is okay. Because if you give yourself space to screw up, then you're also giving your child space to screw up, right? So, you know, that I love. Like I don't have a better answer other than love. That's it for me. Like I love my child and I believe every parent in their core loves their child. And so that is what I would be appealing to. Yep. That love, that all of the rhetoric and theology and all of the stuff and y'all, right? Because a lot of times parents are making decisions based off of social systems. And it's like, what is my network going to say? How do I explain this to my people? If you walk in my house now, there's a constant struggle over, do I need to take these pictures down? That's a real conversation that parents have to wrestle with. Like, does it bother you, Ronnie, that there are pictures over here that look like that and pictures over here? So these are real things that people don't understand that happen in some family systems. And that's where the partnership between you and your child comes in. Because for one family, it's get rid of it. And for another family, it's that was my childhood. I'm not trying to get rid of my childhood, you know, and this is where I am now. And so they can be polarized in a house, but it just takes time. And I think, you know, allow your love for your child to guide you. Allow your love to be the biggest voice. Like let love drown out everybody else's voice. And so if love is telling you to do it and somebody else is telling you, not always err on the side of love.
Oh man, that's the best one-liner. We have one question that we will ask each of the panelists, the same question, and then we're going to open it up for the audience. So what message do you have, we'll start with you, Claire. What message do you have for LGBTQIA individuals who feel vulnerable or unsupported in this community?
I first want to find a way for us, like, you're all here, right? Well, what about those who aren't here or haven't been part of what's been going on or were too afraid or don't know or haven't even come out yet, like haven't gotten to that place? I mean, I can get very Pollyanna in my response in that, of course, you want the message to be that there exists pockets and places within this city specifically that are safe, inviting, the pure definition of DEIB, the place where you can be held in your full authenticity. And if it changes tomorrow, you will be held the same way. Right? Because I think that's probably part of the biggest message, is that we are in our heads, we are so dualistic that even for folks who are able to say, are you gay or are you straight? I remember coming out in the mid 80s, and there was L and there was G. And we had no place for the B. Not that B. B. Because it was, you have to make a choice. you are putting the rest of us at risk because you have to choose gay or lesbian, because we have to be legitimate in the wider community. And if it looks like you're sitting on the fence, you ruin it for all of us. So even in our smallness, we could not understand that the spectrum was way broader than anything we could have imagined. And even in our own community, we became exclusive. And if you were with a man today and with a woman tomorrow, we didn't have a whole lot of tolerance for that. And to use your term of evolution, then there's an evolutionary process of being able then to expand to the extent where you go, I give up. And that's probably the greatest thing you can say is I give up. Because it's not my right to tell you who you are at any given point. And so I think that the broad message is no matter who you are today, we're going to love you the same tomorrow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That if you're on this journey of trying to find your way in the world, that there are places where we don't care about where you are on the journey. We only care about you, the person. And I you know, that seems so kind of out there, but I think that that's a critical message that moves us beyond that dualism, that sense of it has to be right, it has to be wrong, you have to be this, you have to be bad, good or bad, you have to be male, you have to be female. Like, none of that exists in the real world. So why are we pretending that it exists when we're trying to find out who we are as authentic people?
Follow Claire. That's intimidating, right? I would say for the community, I want you to reach out. More than anything, I want you to reach out and know that you have a community who supports you and loves you for who you are, wherever you are in this journey, as Claire said, that we're here to help. You're not alone. And it's scary to make that first step. It's scary to make that first email, that first phone call, that first show up to a group. But you can all do it. All of you have the strength. Every single one in this person in this room, in this entire community, has the strength within themselves to just reach out. And then let us take your hand and let us guide you and help you along the rest of the way. You are never alone. We saw that in New York on Friday. We're seeing that here now. I've seen it continuously throughout the week. People have reached out. How can we help? Allies, how can we help? What can we do? It's there. It's there. I just need all of you amazing, brave souls to take that first step, that little step, and reach out. And I promise you, we will take your hand and we will hold it as long as you need us to hold it.
Thank you.
I'm thinking about something because even in this conversation, in this space, when I look around the room, there are not a lot of Black people present. they're not, right? And so I say this often as an ally, that there is a divide even within the community because of race that we cannot ignore. And so what I say is to everybody first, you've got to recognize that you're missing a big population of people, right? And so part of this work has to be, why are we missing the Black and brown people whenever this community gathers in this space? That is something we've got to pay attention to. So I'm saying to Black and brown queer people specifically, I recognize that it does not appear to be a place for you, but there are places for you, right? And I know that there's the challenge because of our culture. Who do you trust? Is it truthful? How long is it going to last? And all of the other things that come. I pastor a predominantly white context. I do. Everybody knows that. But it's predominantly white in context because it just is. But we there. Ain't we there, Jones? Exactly. We there. I'm saying that that because I want them to know that if we want to bring people in, our approach has to be different for different people because, like we just said, we ain't all the same, right? And so I want everybody to know that every space might not be for you, but there are spaces for you, right? That's what I need people to get. And if you go to the Rainbow Rose and the Rainbow Rose needs to send you somewhere else, then that's okay, because we want to make sure that you get exactly where you need to get to. So I don't want people in this community to feel like they have to take what they're being given. That's what I want you to know. Stop taking what's being given to you and find your place that works for you. Because everything is not for everybody, but there is a place for all of us. All right. And, of course, the preacher in me wants you to know that you're loved. And I said that before. Stop hiding. I want people to live out loud and proud. I have bright red hair because you will not miss me. I will never get lost, right? I am unapologetically D in my bright red hair, and I want people to live out their identities in the same way. However, I also want you to be wise. Safety is a real thing. And as I say to my own child, every fight is not yours. This is where allies come in. Know who your allies are, because sometimes they need to be on the front line and you need to be inside, and that is okay. So when we, right now, there's a lot of momentum to get out there and to us to be all together, and that is great. I would like for you to get someplace that is solid, where you can continue to grow, because advocacy is only one part of the work. Get into a place where you can grow and you can learn more and be loved, and find out who your support system is, because guess what? We're all going to go home. We're going to go home to different places. And people in this community, they have to go back to their lives where we may not be. And so find your allies in your space. And if you can't do it, that's where we come in, so that we can kind of help you, right? So, I'll just keep talking. I know I don't live in a kumbaya world, but I do believe that all means all. And I say that every Sunday. When we say all, we genuinely really mean all at Heidelberg. And I live in all means all life. It is why people don't like me, because I think that there is space for everybody. So if you are here and you are wondering how in the world can this preacher be, I'm her. I am that person that I love all of you. And there is nothing that you can't say or do. You're not going to shock me. I done seen it all, probably did a lot of it. And God still loves me. We have a great relationship. So I think if God can love me, God can definitely love you. And I am here, and you won't miss me. Follow the red hair.
Along those lines, I think that the message that I would have for the queer folks in this community is hydrate. Drink water. Drink what? Take a sip.
Thank you.
Part of activism sometimes comes up when something terrible has happened to someone, and they become an activist because of that. And when someone becomes an activist, sometimes it's, I'm going to collect signatures outside the super Walmart to save the whales, because I feel like, it's something that's impacting me, because the climate is important to me. And that is why I am a climate activist. And for those of us of lived experience in the LGBT community, being an activist sometimes has to start with proving our humanity to someone else before we can fight for the change, not just for ourselves, but for the whole community. And that takes a lot of water out of you. That takes a lot of crying. That takes a lot of sweat. And so I would say, I'm looking directly at you, drink water, please. Because we need you. When you get on an airplane, they tell you got to put the mask on yourself before helping other people. Make sure that you are taken care of, and then that is how you're going to help your community. And it's not just the four of us up here. We've got a whole community out there. You can reach out. You can talk to somebody. There's been a lot in the news about 988. They dropped their the 3-digit. If you press 3, you were going to be connected to someone from the LGBTQ community, someone from the Trevor Project, and that was cut at the federal level. That funding was cut. In Pennsylvania, the governor called the Department of Human Services and said, I need you to make sure that every person, every Pennsylvanian that answers that 988 number is trained to deal with LGBTQ issues. And if they are not, or if they're dealing with an LGBTQ youth, or if it goes beyond what they can do, I need you to make sure that they get a warm handoff to the Trevor Project and that that person stays on the phone with them until they get the help that they need. I am a person who, it's been a rough, 8-9 months. It's been rough out there. I have called 988. You do not need to wait until you're standing on the edge of a bridge to call someone and ask for help. The help is there, and we are going to be here to make sure that it stays that way. And please hydrate. Thank you.
Hey, Cheryl, can I just add one thing?
Absolutely.
To allies, because there are allies in the room. Commit. Yep. If first of all, nobody should claim allyship. You should be called an ally by the people you're trying to help. Yep. Right? Yeah. You don't really get to claim that. Like, I don't get to say that I'm anti-racist, so therefore I'm an ally. Mm-mm. Only when I prove myself. Mm-hmm. And thank you. And if you are claiming allyship, commit. There should not be a moment where you're not thinking about, I'm an ally. Mm-hmm. There's not a moment where you're not willing to use your body to protect another body. And when I say that both figuratively and literally, where you're not willing to stand up and say something and tell somebody to be quiet or other things, and to stand in that gap. That's what allyship is. So if you're saying you're going to do it, you got to commit. And when you hear me say that, you should be going, oh, no. Okay? Because we're committed. Right? So commit. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Can we give it up one more time for this mom? We found it imperative to provide the community such a well-rounded panel. When we're hearing from faith perspective, we're hearing from the executive director of Rainbow Rose, Claire, of course, with all her work, and Edie Strange at the governor commission level. The community is there, the help is there, and I think that that's been the message that has been shared over and over again, which is so needed. And so with that, we're going on to the second half of tonight, where we'd love to open it up to the community. We're going to be using the microphone in the middle. It's going to be open up to comments, questions. Please, this is your time. We want to hear from you. So, yep.
Drink water. Thank you very much. My name is Stephanie Fritsch. I'm an outed elected transgender woman who lives in rural Pennsylvania. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and on behalf of many rural trans people who feel that they don't have a voice. And a lot of rural, I don't usually take notes, but I'm just get myself out just so I can get you heard, okay? First, thank you very much for putting on this. This is amazing. Thank you for the volunteers and all the honorable people who are on the panel today. Rural people don't have their voices heard ever. They live outside the safety bubble every day. There's no safe place. There's no resources. They live in poverty and face discrimination daily. They fear getting hurt without safety. There's lack of education of our neighbors who don't understand what trans people are, and it's a constant struggle for me, who's strong, to deal with all the hate that I get on a daily basis. this is not a slam against the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission at all. But over 6 years ago, I filed a discrimination complaint with the commission, and after 3 years, it was dropped. And I felt at that time there was like no closure, and I didn't get justice, and I lived with that for a very long time. In fact, it triggered like abandonment issues or whatever. I know you have not been in the commission for a long time. You know, I know you're doing a great job now, but in the past, this is what I faced. And I'm not slamming anyone, even though I like to sometimes on social media. World transgender people like myself are screaming and feeling of not being hurt by anyone. I recently didn't have access to a car for 5 months. I was literally stranded in a town of 900 conservative MAGA people for 5 months. All right. And there's other people who feel like they're economic hostages. Economic discrimination is real. Economic exclusion is real. They cannot go to any events. They cannot feel a member or be around their community. You know, like they come to me screaming all the time, and there's nothing that I can do because all I could do is listen to them. I'm up 24 hours a day for the last 4 years. I've done 5 years being an elected official. Every day from community people from all over the world who are really scared, you know. And for me, I'm strong, but there's a point. There's a tipping point that I won't be strong anymore. You know, like world trans people lack health care. You know, I finally got to my doctor like after I got my car on the road. All right, you know, I've been dealing with cancer. I've diabetes, and I've been clean and sober for over 23 years. All right, but at the end of the day, you know, and I think hate crimes at any level should be also adjudicated on the civil level. You know, if someone comes after me, I'm going to sue them in civil court and go after their Gigi pickup trucks, or, you know, the big ones with big ass wheels, and say, look at, oh, your shit is mine now. Look at me now. All right, that's what I'm prepared to do. You know, I've also been arrested for nonviolent civil disobedience in Washington, D.C., more times than I want to remember. All right, I've been a civil rights activist for a bunch of community causes since 1985 for the state of Connecticut. And you are right, back in the 80s, the T community was not included. The B community was not included. It was only the L and the G. And like, intersex people weren't even known about, all right? But I'm here not to like cry. Yes, I am. But frustration. Also, I had a situation that I contacted the state police. They did nothing. The FBI did nothing to protect me. The Anti-Defamation League of Philadelphia did nothing to protect me from death threats and hate attacks every day. I've been a target of hate groups, and there needs to be legislation in the state government. I'm looking at, I don't have my glass on, but please consider that in a strong way. Enact meaningful regulations in code enforcement to protect transgender people and all LGBTQI people in Pennsylvania. And I will hold you accountable on social media. I have over 6 million views of my content on social media every 90 days. You can check my numbers. I've been on the media. I'm not afraid to stand in front of anyone. And I'm here to say, look it, I'm a fucked up person. I have a lot of issues. I do what I can. And actually, I'm probably not going to email you a lot anymore because I'm taking my power back.
What am I going to do once a week without your emails?
All right. But at the end of the day, I literally, if you live in a small community, I implore you all to do write-in campaigns, okay? Get a group of people together to write you in for office that you seek. All right? That way you're under the radar of the conservatives. That way you're under the radar of all the people. So if you get enough votes, you will become an elected person. And that's what I did in a small town, small coal mining, rural conservative town. in northern Dauphin County, Schuylkill County area. That's how I became elected as as auditor, Wickinesco Township, and I want you to remember, if I'm a fucked up individual, I already said that. Full transparency on that part. Check out my social media. It's all fucked up. I know that, but I share my life on the media, in a real way. I don't sugarcoat nothing. I don't edit myself unless I do a spelling error. In fact, I'm really bad at spelling, and I'm not really good at grammar. Full transparency. But I want you to remember, I appreciate the work of everyone on this panel. Side note, I like email Ashley a lot. I'm so sorry that.
This is what people need to do. It's exactly what you're saying. They need to reach out to the representatives that represent them, and that's exactly what you're doing, and that's what we're encouraging people to do.
And it's really cool that Kathleen Dalkey is my former psychiatrist, so she knows exactly, how crazy I can be. But I'm just saying, I live on $1,400 a month, all right? And another good point that this person that I was just talking to, I get good ideas everywhere. Frustration of transgender people that pay school taxes that don't have transgender curriculum and inclusive sex education. How do you address that situation? And that is my question in a rhetorical sense. If you want to answer it, go ahead. And I yield the
Look at you.
Sorry. As a representative of the governor's office, the governor doesn't have oversight over individual curricula. And so that is up to someone who's on the school board, yes, currently, and running for city council. So that's up to your local school boards. We actually had a sit-down conversation with several youth, probably 80 youth back in March, virtually. And a lot of what they said was, we don't learn about our history. We don't learn about, there's not LGBTQ inclusive sex education. Some of them wanted to learn more languages. And some of them complained that they had to get up too early and go to school. There's not a whole lot that I can do about things like that. But I do encourage you, just like Stephanie said, go to your local representatives and reach out to them and make sure that you're emailing them. Heck, email them once a week. They got to check it. It's our job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, hello. My name is John Flood, and I live in Mechanicsburg. So I came down here because I felt that this is critical. A little bit of backstory. I'm a United States Navy veteran. I did 10 years as a naval officer. And at that time, I had my youngest, my oldest son was born. Now, when he was born Stephanie. And I think one of the things that got me into activism, and it's one thing you're taught in the military, especially as an officer, you do not do politics. You do not take sides. You are there to kind of lead. That's it. But when I saw the hate that was coming out, especially over in the Cumberland Valley School District, related to LGBTQ people, when I saw that the interview with a lady over in the West Shore who said that not every child is worthy of my child's empathy, I said to myself, no. So I became an activist, and I became actively involved in our school board. I ran for this Pennsylvania State House in a +20 Republican district. So you imagine how well that went. But I think in a broader sense of this, it got me to the point where allyship is, and I think you made a very good point when you were talking about allyship, and it is we all who have the position of privilege, have not just it's a moral responsibility to stand up and to speak out, to fight for those who do not have a voice and to speak out for them. Because when we do that, we send a message to the rest of the community that these people are worthy of our empathy. They're worthy of our love. They're worthy of our hope. Now, I don't have to, and I can be honest with you, I struggle today with understanding why Corey does this. But I came to the conclusion that, John, it's not your job to worry about why. It's your job to love your child. And that's where we all have that role and that responsibility. Because there are people who are not going to get that love, who are not going to get that support. And it's our responsibility as a community to hug them, to hold them, and to let them know that I will fight for you and that I have your back. And so I just wanted to encourage all of you, and I wanted to thank Cheryl especially, because I know Cheryl, I've worked with Cheryl on some other things. And it's fantastic that we had this, and I appreciate the panel here and your words. And just, folks, it sucks right now, but I look at, we have a unique opportunity here. When all this shit happens and it's gone to hell, we're gonna have to rebuild it, and we can rebuild it better. We can, and that's what we're gonna have to do, and that's what we need to start doing. And we need to start holding our elected officials accountable. That if you don't stand up for us, then you don't get our support. And that's what we have to do. So I encourage you all to get out, register to vote, get out and vote, and make sure you know who you're voting for, and do the right thing, guys. Thank you.
My name is Valerie, and I'm from Southern York County, and my question for the group is, if you were speaking to folks in any of our districts, what would you offer to them as advice to do for our school systems? And I'm hearing you say there's no response. My work for decades has been with public education in a variety of mostly undercover ways, and the learning that I have had, and far too many funerals, and sadly often life and death situations, means that the crisis we're seeing right now in public education makes our work even more important with all of the groups. And you mentioned intersectionality. That is something that is crucial in the school system. And also the ideas that so many students came to me and said, I'm not reporting because nothing ever happens, or I'm not reporting because what was chosen as a consequence, the retaliation was absolutely worse. I heard that over and over again for decades, or it was not effective. So my question is, at this point, and I know it's a broad one, but what would you say primarily are the primary issues that we need to focus on our students in public education with regard to the LGBTQIA community?
I established second.
Do you see how they all just kind of backed up?
I don't have an answer right now. I mean, I think we're in a place, at least in my lifetime, that I have never seen such a broad-based attempt to annihilate communities. And whether we're talking about LGBTQIA, whether we're looking at the Smithsonian being demolished, the African American Museum being rewritten, I mean, that's nothing new, right? So I think every day it's about, are we going to focus on the crisis, or are we going to figure out time to strategize, right? And I think that's by design, right? That's actually by design. We're supposed to be in crisis mode all the time, not drink our water and fall down flat on our face and just say, why bother? I think we have to get used to being more subversive than we are used to being, right? We have lived in a society of quote unquote free speech, which we have thought that we are able to say whatever we want whenever we say it, and we are quickly learning that that's not the case. So we have to do something that we're not used to doing. We have to become experts in how we communicate subversively. So the first thing I think is, how do we communicate to the young people who are literally imprisoned in their particular school districts?
So they hear from the outside sources, right? From the resistance that, okay, yeah, it's a mess and we're still trying to figure out how to penetrate it. But right now, we need to figure out how you can hear us, right? And I think that's where strategy comes in. So when I say, boy, we're getting to these schools and we're not being able to get in there. Did Will leave?
Yeah.
Did Will leave? Okay. That we're not able to get in there. What do we do? So the young man who was here earlier, he came down from college today because he knew we were here and he wanted to be a support. This young man, he is a straight white man, and I say that intentionally, who found himself interning in our office for a year. And in the process of I'll have indoctrinating and brainwashing in my head, but that's not really appropriate. Making him cry every day as we taught him the realities of the world. He started going, he was in Dallastown. He started going to school as a senior and bringing non-binary, LGBT kids that he would connect with, like he would seek them out and invite them into the office, right? Using his point of privilege to say, hey, I have this place I want you to come visit, right? So, and then he graduated and ruined everything. But the point is that was very subversive. He could do that as a student. So I think a long way around is we have to figure out how to strategize. How do we get through the cracks of these barriers that have been set up? And ironically, we try to do it, and we can't do it alone, right? So the fact that you're bringing this up is making me think, we got to figure out another way to connect with other people. But that's how we have to do it. We have to start there.
Can I add to that? So I say two things. My personal motto in life, and you all quote me because it's mine, advocate at the level in which you operate. You are all advocates. We just do it at different levels. I tell people I may never be on CNN, but everywhere I am going to act like it is the biggest platform that I have to stand on whatever it is that I stand for. So advocate at the level in which you operate. When we got into this phase of the world, I'm going to say that without getting political, right? This is what I've been telling people. I'm going to need y'all to start taking pages out of my ancestors' books because we've been here before. This is not new to us. The Underground Railroad was a real thing for a reason because you can't let everybody know what you're doing all the time. And so how do I live in a world where I'm out loud and proud, but at the same time strategizing? Underground, because that's what it's going to take. Yeah. We have to stop putting all of our moves on social media, talking to myself, we've got to stop putting all of our moves on social media because we have to be strategizing. Because if you're telling the enemy exactly what you're doing, they know exactly what their play needs to be. So when we're talking about a school system perspective, our boards have been infiltrated. Like, let's just say it is what it is, right? So that's part of the attack. So some changes are not going to happen. So we do need to be strategizing. And a lot of that strategy has to be covert. Yeah. We're going to have to build these alliances and they not be so public so that we are preparing our kids on this is what to do when. Because one thing I love y'all. Let me say this first. I love y'all. One thing this generation doesn't know how to do is fight the right way. They don't know how to do it the right way. You do know how to fight. There's a lot of fighting in you. We need all of that. But there are some strategies that you have not been handed because the old way has been deemed as not useful. But yet, as you heard people, there are plenty of people doing direct action still. And that was not created right now. That comes from our ancestors, right? So you've got to take a page out of my ancestors' handbook and start to do some strategy underground to create a network because that's what our kids need. Our kids need a safe network. And they need to not have to go and say, yes, it is me. I'm standing in front of everybody asking for support. We have to have some covert networks where we can give them what they need and give them tools to sustain until change comes because it's not going to get better overnight. And so you have to be resilient and sit in the thick of it and know that it's going to change eventually. But right now, It may not. And that they need to hear that, guess what? We in this thing. But you're not in it by yourself. So I think, everything she said and what I said. There we go.
Could I add on to that too? Just by a show of hands, who's familiar with the PHRC? Okay, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. Okay, perfect, because by the end of tonight, everyone will be familiar with the PHRC. And then on top of that, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Act. Familiar with it? To answer the question about education, it's important to note that in 2023, the definition of sex was extended to include gender identity and gender orientation. So LGBTQIA students are protected from unlawful discrimination in education. And let's just add to that if the parent of the minor chooses for whatever reason to not file a complaint with us, to not reach out with us, we have something called equitable tolling, that when that minor turns 18, he, she, or they could file that complaint for themselves. And so that is a powerful piece of knowledge and information that I want everyone in this room to walk away with that. So please, resources for the PHRC is out there. Take it, read it, know your rights. Mm-hmm.
Somebody back here who's been waiting forever since we first started. No, it's pretty. Yeah. Thanks, Kim. No problem.
Hi, I'm Brady. If you learned about what happened last Friday on social media before it was the news, it was from my account. I just wanted to say that, as a queer person here, and also what I choose to celebrate in my own art is like the unique queer experience of living in a small town. And for me and the community I've been so lucky to find, it does feel underground. It feels like a private thing where we know how to treat each other and how to show up for each other. And so I just want to say, to hear like this panel like talk so thoroughly and like validate and educate on things that I'm having conversations at like an after party or at the bar with my friends in a space like this is makes me really grateful and gives me a lot of hope. So thank you for.
Just to throw my hat in the ring, my name is Reverend Cam Richardson. I am the pastor at Dover United Church of Christ in Dover, Pennsylvania. We're right across from the middle school. We have been an open and affirming congregation for the past 11 years. And as the rhetoric and behavior of hate has ratcheted up, we have anchored ourselves in the fact that we are going to be here and be for the LGBTQ plus community. You mentioned earlier, Claire, that trauma that is experienced at the hands of the church is similar to family hurt and rejection. In the research that I'm doing, because I am currently a doctoral student, no offense to you. Research has shown that for folks brought up in a church, it is a family. And when you experience harm by the church, it is equal to harm experienced by a family. Safety is of utmost importance and concern. And belonging is even more important. On top of that, to feel safe where you are, to be who you are. And so where we are in Little Dover, right, we not only welcome you if it's your choice to come through the door. You're not just welcome to come in. You belong with us if that is your choice. You don't just get to come in and look around and say, isn't this nice? We want you to be a part of who we are because you belong there. You deserve the same place at the table as everybody else. And we stand firm in our commitment and put me on the list to be part of the covert operations, to be available to support any LGBTQ plus person who needs that support right now. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Claire, would you throw your hat in the ring for the 2028 presidential?
You got the money to support that?
Hi, my name's Mary Olney. I'm on the board of the Rainbow Rose Center. And as we were sitting through this, a couple of things hit me pretty hard. The one was we talk about fear. I think as a community, those of us who are able to, because we're all at different places, and that's how it needs to be. But there are those of us who are able to also stand up, because I love our allies. My wife is super, but she doesn't know diddly until she learns it and is there. I was a police officer for 18 years. It hurts me deeply when we have the Rainbow Rose Center meetings and we talk about security and we talk about this, and our members say they're afraid of the police. The incident that happened in York, from my perspective, there was a need for the police officers to respond differently. But it's not right for me to say that without saying I'm willing to help the police officers learn how to respond differently. We need to have a liaison. We need to be able to stand up and liaison with people and not be afraid. With the church, I'm a member of a church, First Presbyterian Church of York. It's not an affirming church. The pastors are great. Some of the people are great, but it's not an affirming church. And I'm there because I need to be there. I need to be seen. We as a community need to be seen. We're not victims. We're stronger than that. We have the ability. I was raped right after I transitioned. I was gang raped. I'll be the first to say that I was afraid to go to the police. One, because of my background, and I was in a community where the police knew me. But second of all, just because I didn't trust them to treat it the way it needed to be treated. As I lived through that and come out the other end of that, I realized that that was a mistake. Because what I should have done, even if it wasn't good for me, it would have been a good process to begin teaching. That's what we need to do as a community. I hear a lot of talk about the Human Relations Commission and the churches and pastors who are supportive, but we as a committee, we as a community, I'm sorry about that, we need to be the ones to be out there and say, I have right to be in this space. I have a right to walk. I have a right to go to that restaurant. And if you try to kick me out, you might be able to do that, but at least people see that happening. I was kicked out of a Denny's once. Not that that's a good place to get kicked out of, but the people there saw what was happening. It hurt me, but maybe there were some lessons learned. The schools, we helped in Bloomsburg, we worked with a group of young people who came to us and said, we can't have a GSA in our school. And so we invited them, and the word got out, and we had this group kept growing exponentially because they knew that there was a safe place, but it didn't happen until they saw people out where they could be. Because when you're in a closet, it's hard to see outside of that closet. It's hard to be part of that. When you're afraid of the police, it's hard to trust the police. When the police don't understand you and they don't have a working relationship or an experience with you, it's hard for them to deal with us. I just want to put this out there. I don't know if it's a question or just a comment, but I would love for Rainbow Rose Center to start to take the process of, yeah, we support you and we're there, but what are we doing for our communities? What are we doing for the board, the commissioners and the police officers in our area? How are we helping them work instead of just saying, well, we don't trust them? I think we need as a community to be able to, those of us who can, put ourselves out there and say, here I am. I have a documentary done on my life. Not that I'm worthy for a documentary, but they did it anyway. But people ask me if I'm afraid now to show that. And the truth is, I need to show it now more than ever. And people need to see that. I'm 72 years old. What are they going to do to me? I mean, I'm there. So yeah, for the community as we're talking tonight, I just challenge each and every one of us to try to think where we are, what we can do to help. And if it just means to sit back and take care of ourselves, that's what we need to do. But if you're able to say, Stephanie, I mean, she went out in a community that was conservative and she put herself out there and it made a difference. Hard as hell for her, but it made a difference. If we can do that, people see that. And that's an education. And when we talk about education, that's how we do it. That's how you change votes. I mean, people, we gotta be loud and proud. That's the word.
My name is Ray, and I've lived here for over 10 years. I use the pronouns he, they, and as an expansion of what you were just talking about, I wanted to start my speech by saying that in marketing, I went to business school. And one of the first things that they taught us about in marketing is something called the mere exposure effect. It is a psychological effect where the more you are exposed to something, it does not matter what it is, your exposure to it creates a level of acceptance. So, to any queer people who are listening to this, either online, in person, go outside and exist. Be there. Do things that even if you think that the place that you are going to may not accept you, if you think you can be safe, go out there anyway. I do that very frequently. Every time I go outside and I think I'm gonna meet somebody, I have a necklace that says my name is Ray and my pronouns are he, they. And there were some questions today about, oh, how do we make more accommodations for trans people? We don't know how to handle that. Easiest thing you can do, normalize asking, what are your pronouns? There's a few other things I wanted to say. I forget what they are. I was practicing this before I got here, but yeah. Another thing is that some tools for reaching out to people who represent you. There is a website called ResistBot. What you do is you go on the website. It tells you how to make contact with this robot, and what this robot does is it sends a message that you have written to your representatives based on your location about this is the thing that you care about. This is a petition that you have signed. This is a letter that you want to send to them. You can choose several things, several ways of contacting them, and you can contact them as easy as that. You can even follow other people who are using this application, and whenever they post a petition or a letter, you can say, yes, I want that sent to my representative. And I can tell you for the past several months, John Fetterman has heard so much from me because of this application. Yeah, most important thing is contact people relentlessly, and of course, never stop being present. Last thing I wanted to say is that there is an underground community of people who make these things called zines. They are self-made magazines, and they're usually really small. I am someone who has made several of them for several organizations. I will not say the names of those organizations because of something I'm going to call Operation Security. I believe that is the word that you ladies were looking for earlier, in terms of like, how do we do things that are underground or low key? That is how you do it. Look up Operation Security when you go home. But anyway, there's these things called zines. and they can have literally anything in them, but they're very popular with leftists and queer people for a good reason. So those are some things to look up when you get home.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more comment if there was someone in the audience that.
Oh, you go.
Real quick, going to combine two things. Our gentleman back here wanted us all to know about HB 300 in the judiciary, SB 150 in labor and industry, and Rep. Hill Evans is a co-sponsor on that bill. My question is super fast. How do we pass that ordinance, and how do the community members make that happen?
So you're talking about state level laws?
Or the York one. You said it was it would just result in a misdemeanor, and that sucks, but it's still important that we do it anyway because it shows that it's something that York cares about.
Right.
How does York pass that ordinance, and what can we do to support
Okay,
that?
great question. Make sure everybody signs the petition when you leave. It's a petition of support, so you do not have to be a York resident to sign that. Because what we're doing is we're just demonstrating to our city council, and I let the city council president know that we would be presenting this to her. She goes, I'm on board. So we're gonna present that and really sort of press, and there were 2.5 council people here today, which is really great. So what will happen is this: you're going to sign a petition, and then as the legislation is drawn up, okay, it goes into committee with city council. And as we get closer to presenting it and then going on a vote, you're going to see a huge PR blast, as we're going to use all of our media folks who have diligently stayed for this whole thing. And we will send out a blast. If you've left your emails, then we will add you to our mailing list to let you know when that city council meeting is coming in, so that anybody who's interested can come in on the night that there's going to be a vote and say your piece and push it through. I'm hoping that we get this done soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm not good at being brief, but I'll try. My name is Reverend Jesse North. I'm the pastor of Wrightsville Presbyterian Church in Wrightsville, Pennsylvania, and Grandview Church York, which meets at the Belmont Theater. You might have seen an op-ed from Wrightsville Presbyterian in the Dispatch this week. There's another one sitting on the editor's desk from Grandview York that went there first, and I don't know if the Dispatch is here, but it'd be great if that one made the paper, because our council worked really hard on that. Both of our congregations are open and affirming, and it's because of what Reverend DeMarie already said. So I don't want to do anything other than just kind of underscore that we all need to be erring on the side of love. And like Reverend D, for me, Jesus is the example. And one of the things that people who hang around me very long hear, till maybe they're tired of it, is that one of the things that I love about Jesus is he thinks as much about the people that are in the room already as the people who aren't. And he's always going somewhere else. So the thing I wanted to say back to the panel and some of the folks who said, make sure you reach out, is that what DeMarie said is also true. That wherever we are, we need to be advocating. Mm-hmm. So we need to be in spaces where those folks are. So I'd invite your organizations to come to my congregations and talk to people.
Absolutely.
And I'd invite all of y'all, wherever you are, to say that's true. So if your church welcomes folks, say that. And if they don't, or some of them do and some of them don't, I'm Presbyterian. First York is one of our colleague congregations. It's in our presbytery. There's other kinds of Presbyterians, so if you don't know which kind of Presbyterians they are, make sure you ask one of us or Betsy. Because some of them you don't want to be around. They're behind all this nonsense on the school boards, right? They're the ones that are making problems, punching down on trans kids and doing things like that. I've got a trans kid in a school district. Well, they're graduated now, and they go to Bryn Mawr College, which is how all the world should be. If you've never been to Bryn Mawr and don't know anything about it, I couldn't be happier that my child is at Bryn Mawr. And Manheim Township is okay now, but it was damn close. It was damn close. But people fought, and it was a Presbyterian on that board that tried to bring all that ILC nonsense in. So we need to be going out to school boards. We need to be going out and talking to our neighbors. We need to be having those conversations wherever we are, because if the message of love and justice is going to go somewhere, it's got to come from people of faith and moral courage. So I want to encourage any of you who are that, people of faith or no faith, that want a world of love and justice, that's possible. If you follow me on Facebook, you know I always end my post by saying, another world is possible, y'all. And it's going to happen because of what Mr. Fluck here said. This whole thing is coming apart. But if it's going to get built, it's going to get built because of people like us. It's going to get built because we learn from your ancestors. It's going to get built because we learn about mutual aid. It's going to get built because we make the kind of connections that are happening in this room. So if you want to make those kind of connections, they happen a little differently at Grandview York than they do at Wrightsville Presbyterian, because I don't know if you've been to Wrightsville, but it's different. All right? But let's be working together. Thank you all for being here.
I think with that, we'll go ahead and go into closing remarks for tonight. So just a couple things I wanted to touch on briefly. We'd be remiss if we didn't share that the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission is your state's leading civil rights enforcement agency. It's been in existence since 1955. That's almost 10 years prior than the Federal Civil Rights Act of 1964. And so everyone in here, I promise you, is protected under the protected classes of gender, race, sex, religion, the things that we've talked about, up to including pregnancy status, use of support animals, age 40 and up. And we're ahead of the curve because that's one of the lowest age limits compared to other states. With respect to the 5 different sectors of education, housing, employment, public commercial property, and public accommodation. And it is no charge to file a complaint with us. We have neutral investigators that will look into it, determine if there's probable cause, and go through the process. The power is in the complaint, and we've talked about that as well. But we also have other services such as mediation and training. Again, everything at no cost. We're the civil rights team. We'll travel across all 67 counties. We'll meet you in your backyard. This is what we do. And it's very honoring to be a part of this work. I also wanted to say to the many faith leaders that are in this space, I am working with an organization that is working to connect interfaith groups across the state to support children during tense school board sessions or rallies if they want to, if the child wants to attend, if the parent wants to attend. They're also backed up by faith leaders in the community. That is a growing initiative, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will connect you with the leader of that. And again, a huge shout out to this amazing panel. I'd also be remiss if I just didn't share a personal special thanks to you, Claire. It has been, you are the definition of boots on the ground. You have shown up throughout the whole time, talking to people behind the scenes, helping to mitigate different issues prior to tonight, whatever they may be, making sure the right people in the right spaces, printing out the bios just in case I forgot. But truly, it is those action items that pull all of this together. So I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you to you, and I would be even more remiss if I didn't say thank you to the community, because it is we the people that's going to make the changes. So thank you all, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful day. Feel free to check out the resources. PHRC staff, we got to take some pictures. Come on.
Thank you all again for being here. We are so grateful for your time and your energy. Have a good night and stay safe, please. Yes.